Hello again. Every so often I come across something in a newspaper which leaves me quite literally lost for words. This happened on Monday when I picked up a copy of the free newspaper which is distributed at tube stations in London. It's called The Metro, and I dare say that some viewers will be familiar with it. A letter was published in it on Monday which honestly defies belief. I give a link to this letter in the description to this video. Allow me to read it out. It is from a Ukrainian woman called Svetlana Voroshenko, and it reads as follows. I came to the UK with my mum this year. My mum got sick and we had to rush to the hospital for an emergency. We waited 4 hours before anyone cared about my elderly mum and how she was doing. I think it's terrible. When we were in Poland before coming to the UK, my mother also felt bad and we went to the hospital. She was admitted immediately because there they help war refugees from Ukraine without queues. I'm sorry to say it, but I've been disappointed with England's public health care. Have you ever in all your life heard anything quite so rude and ungrateful? Here are two women who have left their own country, supposedly as refugees. They have tried out Poland's hospitality and then decided it didn't quite suit them, so they decided to come here instead to our country. Following which they complained that our health system isn't a patch on Poland's. This is absolutely priceless. Just imagine fleeing a war and then being offered shelter in a country thousands of miles away and then moaning that their hospitals aren't good enough. I suspect that the citizens of that country might have some handy advice for you along the lines of, well, if you don't like our country, then why not go elsewhere? Then too, what actually are all these Ukrainians doing in this country? When the war began, there was a fear that the whole country would be invaded by Russia and that Ukraine would turn into a disaster zone. That has not happened, and the fighting is now largely confined to the front line in the very east of the country, mainly around Donetsk. This is pretty much a situation which existed before the Russian invasion. It's been going on since 2014, in fact, and it has little effect most of the time on the rest of the country. More civilians in the Ukraine are being killed in road accidents than as a result of military action these days. Is it not time that some of those refugees thought about returning to their own country? Then too, we need to consider why Svetlana Voroshenko had to wait so long when she took her mother to casualty. The last time I took somebody to A&E, it was at King George Hospital in Goodmayes, which is near Ilford. Listening to and watching those waiting there, I soon noticed two things. First, that I and the person I was with were the only white British people seeking treatment. Secondly, it became apparent that many of those seeking treatment had come because they were not registered with a GP and were simply using A&E because they had a headache or stomach upset. I suspect many of them were what are known now as undocumented migrants, or what we used to call illegal immigrants. Most of their conditions were not emergencies at all, but when they were being asked by staff, it came out that they didn't even have a GP. There was a time when visiting the casualty department of a hospital meant that you would see people with broken ankles or nasty cuts, that is to say casualties or emergencies, but that isn't the case at all these days. And as I say, you see very few white British people in the average A&E. In other words, Svetlana Voroshenko, who is a foreigner, had to wait a long time in the A&E because loads of other foreigners were clogging up the place, which is a little ironic.